Alex Eala under review. Hidden evidence exposes her biggest rival yet. No one saw this coming. What started as a simple on-court rivalry has turned into a full-blown investigation shaking women's tennis. New leaks, hidden footage, and whispers that the truth could destroy more than just reputations. Is Alex Eala being unfairly targeted? Or did the evidence finally reveal a side of her no one expected? Because once the cameras stopped rolling, the real match began behind closed doors. Before the headlines, before the rumors, before the word under review even surfaced, there was Alex Eala, a young woman with fire in her eyes and the world at her feet. Her story began long before the bright lights and the cameras, a story built on hunger, sweat, and a dream that seemed impossible for a girl from the Philippines, a country where tennis was never supposed to produce global champions. From the moment she first held a racket, there was something different about Alex. Coaches saw it in her movement, in the way she chased every ball as if her life depended on it. She wasn't the tallest or the strongest, but she was relentless. Every match was a battle against limits of her body, her environment, and the quiet doubts that surrounded her. When she left home as a teenager to train in Spain, it wasn't just a career decision. It was a sacrifice. Thousands of miles away from her family, she learned to speak a new language, trained with professionals twice her age, and lived in a world that demanded excellence every single day. The Rafa Nadal Academy became her second home, and it was there that she sharpened her discipline, her aggression, and her composure. But hidden behind that composure was something else, a deep sense of expectation that grew heavier with every win. By the time she began appearing in WTA tournaments, Alex wasn't just another promising player. She was the face of a nation, a symbol of pride, talent, and possibility. The Filipino flag on her gear became a statement. Every match she played, every camera that followed her, reminded her that millions were watching, hoping, praying, expecting her to be the one who breaks through. Her rise through the ranks was quick, almost too quick. In just a few seasons, she transitioned from junior champion to professional contender, defeating top names and proving she could hold her own among the best. Commentators called her fearless, opponents called her unpredictable. She brought intensity, a raw, emotional energy that made her matches feel like wars rather than games. But with every success came pressure, and with pressure came cracks. There were days when her smile seemed forced, when interviews felt rehearsed, and when her eyes carried the fatigue of someone balancing fame with fear. Fear of letting people down, fear of falling short, fear that one misstep could undo everything she'd worked for. And in tennis, where reputation is everything, that fear isn't just emotional, it's strategic. Players watch, rivals whisper, and every gesture is analyzed. Behind the scenes, talk of a growing rivalry began to circulate. A rival who didn't just challenge Alex's game, but her composure. Someone who could push her to the edge. And as fate would have it, that rivalry would soon explode into the spotlight. But at this point in the story, Alex was untouchable. She was young, driven, adored, and unstoppable. Her early victories painted a picture of perfection, a rising star rewriting her country's sporting history. Yet the same intensity that fueled her also isolated her. The long training sessions, the endless travel, the media scrutiny, they built an invisible wall between her and the rest of the tour. Many admired her. Few truly knew her. Every time she stepped onto the court, it wasn't just about the opponent across the net. It was about proving something deeper. That she belonged. That her success wasn't a fluke. That the world's respect wasn't a gift. It was earned, point by point, drop by drop. But even stars burn out when they shine too brightly, too soon. Behind the confidence and the trophies, Alex's journey was becoming more volatile. Small confrontations, emotional post-match moments, and subtle signs of frustration hinted that something inside her was changing. Pressure doesn't always explode. Sometimes it simmers quietly, waiting for the right spark. That spark would come soon. A match that seemed ordinary would become the turning point. A moment that started as competition would spiral into accusation. And a rivalry that began in silence would soon echo across the entire tennis world. Because in professional tennis, the greatest battles aren't always fought on court. Sometimes they begin the moment you walk off it. It began like any other match, the kind fans barely notice at first. But for Alex Eala, this wasn't just another day on court. This was the match that changed everything. The atmosphere was tense even before the first serve. Her opponent, a seasoned rival known for her cold precision and mental warfare, had history with Eala. Their previous encounters were fiery, marked by tight scorelines, emotional exchanges, and a chemistry that was as explosive as it was unpredictable. But on this day, something was different. The energy felt darker, heavier. The air around the baseline carried more than just competition. It carried unspoken resentment. From the first few games, Alex looked off. Her timing was sharp, but her reactions too emotional. She shouted after unforced errors, gestured toward her box, and exchanged long stares across the net. The commentators noticed it too. One remarked, "Eala looks frustrated early. That's unusual for her." It wasn't just frustration. It was pressure boiling over. Then came the moment. A controversial line call, a ball that landed right at the edge, so close it could have gone either way. Alex's rival claimed it was out. Alex insisted it clipped the line. The chair umpire sided against her. And just like that, something in her snapped. She walked up to the umpire, voice trembling with disbelief. "That ball was in," she said, shaking her head. The crowd murmured. Cameras zoomed in. Her rival stood on the other side, arms crossed, smirking slightly. A small gesture, but one that spoke volumes. For Alex, it was humiliation disguised as fairness. As play resumed, Alex's focus was gone. Every shot she hit seemed heavier, angrier. Her rival, sensing weakness, played with more confidence. Every forehand deeper, every return sharper. It was psychological warfare, and Eala was losing it. By the time the final point ended, the scoreboard told one story, but her face told another. The handshake at the net was cold, forced, and brief. Neither player said a word, but it wasn't the loss that made headlines. It was what happened minutes later. In the locker room, witnesses described raised voices, words exchanged, accusations thrown. Something about unfair treatment, about respect, about how some people always get away with it. Nobody knew exactly what triggered it. But by the time tournament officials stepped in, the tension had already crossed the line. When footage from the tunnel leaked online hours later, it showed a fragment, a brief, shaky clip where Eala appeared to confront someone from her rival's camp. The audio was muffled, but one phrase stood out. "You know what you did." That 3-second moment was all it took. Within hours, it went viral. Fans dissected it frame by frame, searching for clues. Was Alex angry about the line call? Was there something deeper? The tennis world erupted. Social media divided instantly. One side defending her passion, the other condemning her behavior. Alex Eala's emotions got the best of her. "She's being provoked, can't you see that? She should be suspended. She's just human." What no one knew yet was that this wasn't just a post-match outburst. Behind the scenes, a quiet review had already begun. Officials wanted to know if the confrontation violated the code of conduct or if something more serious had occurred. The phrase "under review" started circulating through unofficial channels, and soon enough it became public. Eala stayed silent. No statements, no interviews, just a single post on social media, a photo of her on court with the caption, "Truth always finds a way." It only deepened the mystery. Reporters tried to piece together the story, but conflicting accounts made it impossible to know what really happened. Some said her rival instigated it. Others claimed Eala's emotions spiraled out of control. What everyone agreed on, though, was that this was no longer just about tennis, because once officials step in, once footage starts circulating, once reputations are on the line, it stops being about the sport. It becomes about power, image, and survival. The rivalry that once lived between two athletes was now being dissected by the entire world. Every replay, every quote, every body language analysis became evidence. Fans didn't just want results anymore. They wanted the truth. And as the investigation deepened, whispers began to emerge that there was hidden evidence, unseen footage, private communications, and testimony that could expose the real story. But if that evidence came to light, one career might never recover. Because in tennis, the truth doesn't just change how fans see you. It decides who gets to keep standing on that court. The silence didn't last long. Within days of the under-review announcement, whispers turned into headlines. Screenshots began appearing on forums, private clips surfaced on fan accounts, and soon, the words "hidden footage" started trending across social media. At first, nobody knew what to believe. The tournament organizers stayed quiet. Eala's camp refused to comment. But one grainy video clip changed everything. A short, 30-second recording taken from a restricted hallway camera that wasn't meant for the public eye. The footage showed Alex walking briskly toward her locker room, visibly upset. Her rival appeared just seconds later, followed by a tense exchange. Though the audio wasn't clear, analysts pointed out a moment where her rival seemed to make a dismissive gesture, a smirk, a shrug, before Eala stepped closer, visibly angry. Security staff intervened almost immediately, separating them before things escalated further. It wasn't a fight. It wasn't violent, but it was personal. The clip painted a different picture from what many had assumed. One that suggested provocation, not just emotional outburst. And that's when public opinion began to shift. Sports journalists replayed the footage frame by frame. Some argued Eala was unfairly portrayed as the aggressor. Others claimed she had crossed a professional line, no matter the provocation. The tennis world had split down the middle. Those who saw her as a victim of double standards, and those who believed the rules must apply equally to everyone. Her rival's silence only added fuel to the fire. She didn't deny the confrontation, but she didn't defend herself either. Meanwhile, fans began digging deeper, uncovering small moments from past tournaments where similar tension had flickered between the two. It became clear this wasn't an isolated event. This rivalry had been simmering for months, maybe years. When the tournament committee finally confirmed they were reviewing all available evidence, speculation went into overdrive. Was there more footage the public hadn't seen? Did someone leak it intentionally? And most importantly, who stood to lose the most once the truth came out? For Alex, the hidden footage wasn't just evidence. It was vindication waiting to happen. For her rival, it was a ticking clock. Because once everything was revealed, the world would know who had really crossed the line. And in a sport built on grace, respect, and reputation, one clip was enough to rewrite everything. When the hidden footage hit the internet, the tennis world didn't just react, it erupted. Within 48 hours, hashtags like "Chuck Your Justice for Eala" and "Chuck Your Respect the Rules" dominated every social platform. Fans, journalists, and even retired players took sides. What began as a private dispute had transformed into a global debate about fairness, favoritism, and emotion in women's tennis. Tournament officials could no longer ignore it. The organizing body called an emergency meeting, forming a review board to investigate the incident. It was a rare move, and one that signaled how serious things had become. Behind closed doors, statements were gathered, security footage reviewed, and player interviews conducted. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. Was Alex Eala truly out of line, or was she pushed to the edge? But while the review process was meant to bring clarity, it only deepened the chaos. Rumors spread that officials were divided. Some wanted a quiet warning. Others demanded suspension. A leaked report claimed that certain board members had ties to Eala's rival's management agency, a claim that, true or not, exploded across social media. Suddenly, fans were questioning not just the incident, but the integrity of the system itself. Through it all, Alex Eala stayed silent. She refused interviews, avoided statements, and didn't appear in public. The silence was powerful, almost defiant. Her team released only one short note to the press. Alex remains committed to fairness, respect, and transparency. The truth will speak for itself. But while she stayed quiet, her rival's camp wasn't. Anonymous sources fed subtle comments to the media, painting Eala as emotionally unstable and hard to work with. It was character warfare, waged through whispers and headlines. And as the days passed, the line between truth and narrative blurred beyond recognition. Fans noticed the imbalance. They pointed out how other players had shown emotion on court without facing the same scrutiny. Why was Alex different? Was it because she was young? Because she wasn't from a traditional tennis powerhouse? Or because she had finally threatened someone's dominance? The pressure reached a boiling point when Eala's supporters organized a public campaign demanding full transparency from the WTA. Petitions, fan videos, and trending threads called for the release of the entire locker room footage. They didn't want selective leaks. They wanted the full story. Inside the review board, tensions mirrored the outside world. Sources hinted that one member, a respected former player, openly questioned whether Eala's punishment was being influenced by politics. "This isn't about behavior," they allegedly said. "It's about who controls the narrative." The board's final decision was delayed twice, fueling more speculation. Every delay meant another storm of online discussion, another round of think pieces, and another blow to both players' reputations. For Alex, this was no longer just about a rivalry. It was about survival. Her image, her endorsements, her ranking, everything hung in the balance. The once unstoppable Prodigy was now trapped in a game far more dangerous than anything played on a tennis court. And as the review board prepared to announce its findings, one truth became undeniable. This wasn't just a story about two players. It was a reflection of how fragile reputation can be, and how easily power can shape perception in the world of professional tennis. Because sometimes, it's not the match that defines a player. It's the politics that follow it. When the review board finally broke its silence, the entire tennis world held its breath. Reporters crowded the press room, microphones lined up in rows, and cameras focused on a single podium that would decide the fate of Alex Eala's season, maybe even her career. The official statement began diplomatically, as they always do. After thorough review of all available footage, testimony, and relevant evidence, but beneath the calm wording lay a storm of politics, bias, and fear of public backlash. The verdict, no suspension, but a formal warning. Technically, Eala was cleared, but the wording was strategic. The review board cited emotional conduct unbecoming of a professional player, while acknowledging clear provocation and mitigating circumstances. In short, both sides were at fault, but neither would be punished severely. To the public, it sounded like balance. To those who understood tennis politics, it felt like damage control. Alex Eala walked away with her ranking intact, but her image scarred. Sponsors hesitated. Journalists questioned her composure. And though she never spoke publicly about it, her silence became her most powerful statement. The photo of her leaving the press room, eyes forward, lips sealed, became iconic. The image of a player who had been burned by the system she trusted. Her rival, on the other hand, faced quiet criticism. Fans noticed her sudden absence from media appearances and her careful avoidance of the topic. Though she wasn't officially blamed, her reputation took a silent hit, not from punishment, but from perception. In the digital age, guilt doesn't always come from evidence. Sometimes it comes from how the world feels about you. But the true fallout wasn't visible in headlines. It was in how Alex changed afterward. Her next few matches carried a different kind of intensity. The same fire was there, but it had evolved, colder, sharper, wiser. She no longer played just to win. She played to prove she couldn't be broken. The crowd began to see it too. Every forehand winner, every comeback, every calm stare at the net. It all told the story of a young woman who had survived a storm and refused to apologize for it. The review board's verdict may have closed the investigation, But it opened something deeper, a conversation about gender, power, and fairness in women's tennis. And in that conversation, Alex Eala became more than an athlete. She became a symbol. Months later, the scandal began to fade from the headlines. New tournaments came, new controversies rose, and the world moved on. But for Alex Eala, nothing was the same. The experience had changed her, not in defeat, but in perspective. She began speaking more openly about emotional expression in sports, about how female athletes are often labeled unstable when they show passion that would be called intensity in men. Her words resonated far beyond tennis. In one rare interview, she finally broke her silence. "Everyone has a moment they wish they could take back," she said softly. "But sometimes that moment teaches you who you really are." Those words struck something deep in fans. They weren't just hearing an athlete talk about tennis. They were hearing a young woman talk about growth, injustice, and strength. Her rivalry still existed, quiet, cold, professional. But it no longer defined her. Instead, it reminded her of what she'd endured, of the price of rising too fast, too young, in a sport that expects perfection, but punishes emotion. And maybe that's why her story hit so hard. Because behind the bright lights and polished interviews, athletes are human, fighting battles the cameras never show. Alex Eala's review may have ended, but it left a question echoing across the sport. Was justice truly served? Or was this just another example of the system protecting its own? No matter the answer, one truth remains: she didn't fall. She evolved. And sometimes, survival is the greatest victory of all. The story of Alex Eala isn't just about rivalry, it's about resilience. It's a reminder that in professional sports, reputation can be destroyed in seconds, but redemption takes a lifetime of strength. So what do you think? Was Alex unfairly targeted? Or did the review board make the right call? Drop your thoughts below. The debate is far from over. And if you want more deep dives into the biggest rivalries, breakdowns, and emotional moments in women's tennis, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because this is just the beginning. And the next chapter of women's tennis might be even more explosive.